find yourself. It's worth it.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today we are going to be looking back at Thursday's action. We're going to be previewing Friday's games. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. If you are looking for analysis on the Jeff Teague to Atlanta trade, check out the podcast I recorded earlier today where I went through all the details of that deal. You can see it labeled Jeff Teague trade, top 18 players, whether it's on YouTube or via your podcast provider. I've already spoken about that deal and the potential implications of it, so you can go and check out my thoughts on it there. What we're going to be talking about here is Thursday's action in the NBA. And the first game was a smackdown. The Suns beat the Knicks 121-98. The Knicks, after showing some fight and that weird win against Miami, are getting blown out routinely at the moment by a Suns team who's not that good on the road here. It's a pretty devastating loss. But to Phoenix's credit, and I've shit on them plenty of times this season, they made the smart move. They put DeAndre Ayton into the starting lineup. They also started Mikal Bridges. That's because of Kelly Oubre's absence. But let's start with Ayton. 26 and 21, 2 blocks, 73% shooting, 4 of 4 from the line. As good as you could have expected from him. This is why he does have this top 25, top 20 upside. I don't know if he can ever push further than that because of the lack of assists, steals, and threes, but those other numbers come in such big quantities that your buy low window has pretty much slammed shut now, but it was open for a week or so, and this is not far off the expectation. The 21 rebounds may be a bit high. Ravishing Rick Rubio, he has been really, really important for the Suns, and he came back here 25, 8, and 13 with 4 steals and a block. It helped that he hit his shots, which he hadn't really been doing of late, but that's a strong performance. While as for Bridges, he started all I could have asked for. 35 minutes, fantastic, but not much else. The 4 assists are nice, but as I've said so many times with Bridges, his value is dictated by steals. And if he doesn't get steals, it's a bad night. He didn't get steals, it's a bad night. I still think that if you're looking for steals, he is a solid 12-team league guy. Otherwise, there's just very little point in having him on your roster. Dario Saric also got those extra minutes with Oubre out. 28 minutes for him, 11 and 6, one of his better games of the season. I'm not adding him in 10s or 12s or probably even 14-team leagues because I think Oubre's return is going to take a lot of that playing time away. They went with an interesting situation here. They did take Tyler Johnson out of the rotation, and we got 7 minutes of Javon Carter taking those Tyler Johnson minutes. That was an interesting change. We also got 15 minutes of Cheick Diallo in this game, while Aaron Baines played only 15 minutes. If you haven't already, Baines is a clear 12-team drop in every sort of format that you could imagine. Probably should mention Devin Booker, who had 29, 4, and 4 here as well on elite percentages and elite free throw attempt numbers. Really, really good stuff from Booker. As for the Knicks, Julius Randle, playing under a real coach, is putting up good numbers again. 26 and 6 with 3 steals and 2 triples. His post-Fizdale and pre-Fizdale splits are ridiculous. Go and have a look. I wrote an article over on Yahoo Sports today that you can check out the comparison between his Fizdale and Miller numbers. They are quite stark. How about your mate, Mitchie Robinson?
And Mitch Robinson says, I'll take it from here.
I don't know why it took this long, but 30 minutes, 12 and 8, 3 steals and 2 blocks. If he's on your wire, you add him. Now, I'm not fooling myself and thinking he's getting 30 minutes a night. He isn't every night. He should, if he can stay out of foul trouble, but I don't necessarily think it's happening. The low minutes for him recently have been ridiculous, and this is hopefully a step in the right direction. Taj Gibson, 2 games ago, played 30 minutes and now can't even get 15 minutes. That was so weird, that little stretch that he had. While Rowan Barrett Jr. hurt his ankle, he's on crutches after the game and we will be reevaluated on Friday. Not great. He'd been starting to play a little bit better. The percentages are still rough, but it's just a wait and see thing. Marcus Morris returned. He was pretty inefficient, 17 points on 36% shooting, and even 7 of 10 from the line. It's not that great. Again, I still maintain that he's not going to be a big fantasy playoff contributor. Well, only 24 minutes for Elfrid Payton, as him and Frank Ntilikina split the minutes 24 apiece. 8 and 7 for Payton and 2 and 6 with 2 steals for Ntilikina. I still think Payton should be held onto in 12 teams. Not much else happening. There was no Reggie Bullock, so we got 26 minutes of Damo Dotson. He played, he had 6 points in that time. So, look, if Barrett does miss, you're going to get a bit more of Kadeem Allen. You're going to get more Dotson. You're going to get more Bullock. Maybe they unveil Alonzo Trier at some point. I don't know if they ever will. But there is, some obviously minutes opening there. Maybe they look at Kevin Knox more. But, he was pretty bad again. 7 points on only the 8 shots for the Fort. If you're the type of fan who knows the NBA and you want to use your knowledge to turn that abundance of wealth of information that you have into money, MyBookie is the place for you because they let you turn all of that knowledge into cash in your wallet. With football, playoffs, NBA, the start of the college basketball season, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're that bloke who likes to bet a little to win a lot, try a parlay, for instance. If you like a couple of the big favourites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. So if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag because no one gives you more ways to win. If you join right now, MyBookie will match your deposit halfway, all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you get an extra $1,000 in free money to play with. Just use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA to activate the offer. Once again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNBA to take advantage of MyBookie's generous sign-up offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, and you get paid. On to the next game now. The Utah Jazz go down to the Pelicans in overtime. It is absolutely amazing how much of a difference Derek Favors makes to this team. They seem to get blown out when he doesn't play, and when he plays, things look pretty good. They got the big victory here in overtime. Probably shouldn't have gone to overtime with a pretty dodgy foul called for Gobert towards the end of the game, but in the end, the right result was there. Let's start with the Jazz side of things. No Conley still. 42 minutes for the Donovan Mitchell.
He's Don. He's good.
46 points, 7 triples, 6 rebounds and 2 steals, but a stellar 7 of 7 from the line. Getting those free throw attempts up is what takes him from a top 50, top 40 guy into a top 20 guy. Bojan Bogdanovic had 26 points with 4 assists. Those 4 assists, that's like hen's teeth for him. While Rudy Gobert, the blocks are here. 3 blocks, 17 and 14. Royce O'Neal played a lot of minutes and didn't do much. While it wasn't a great night from Jingle and Joe. 12, 5 and 6 from Ingles with 2 steals. Yeah, he is still a must-roster guy. The Conley fit is going to be really interesting. Same thing goes for Jordy Clarkson, who did score 15 points and only played 21 minutes. He's an interesting points-type streamer off the bench. He is not a 12-team league player who's he is rostered in 57% of competitive leagues in 12-teamers, which is way, 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 way too high. Onto the Pelicans. They welcomed back Brandon Ingram, who was unbelievable again. 49 points, 3 triples, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block. I thought that this shooting would drop off. And you know what? It had over the last couple of weeks. But he took 20 free throw attempts here. This increase in his free throw percentage from like being a sub 60 guy to being an 80 to 85 type of a guy is amazing. You don't see these changes. His ability to go from a low 3-point volume guy into a high 3-point volume guy with high percentages is amazing as well. You don't see these changes happen. That's why I was so adamant that, look, he's just not going to stick. Well, it's been 50 games now. It looks like it's going to stick. It is an amazing change. 49, 8 and 6, 60% shooting, 16 of 20 from the line. Unbelievable stuff from Ingram. My mate Derek Favors, first game back after the hammy, 36 minutes, 21 and 11, 2 steals and 3 blocks. He's actually really, really good. He should not be on any waiver wires anywhere. There's always going to be concerns with him getting injured with his back, with his hammies, with his knees. There's always a concern. But when he plays, he is bloody good. Wasn't a great night from Lonzo shooting-wise. 5 points for Lonzo Ball on just 2 of 12 shooting. But this is the difference between him and, say, Colin Sexton is that when Lonzo has a bad shooting night, you get 13 assists and 2 blocks. When Colin Sexton does, you get 2 rebounds and 1 assist. That is the difference between those sort of guys, and why Lonzo's ceiling and his floor is so much higher in that scenario. He should be rostered everywhere. Well, Josh the Hitman Hart had 3 steals in his 37 minutes. He's going to lose quite a bit when guys like Redick and Zion and Drew and Kenrick Williams all return. Nickeil Alexander-Walker played pretty well, 12 points with 3 assists, added some defensive numbers. His path to minutes is a little cloudy at this point. I could see in 2-3 years' time him becoming a starter. He needs to rein in some of his chucker-type tendencies, but this was one of his better games. While Etuan Moore chucked in 16 points and Frank Jackson played 26 minutes. I don't believe in Jackson as a long-term option. And 26 minutes for Nicole O'Malley. He was bad. He was the only Pelicans player with a negative plus-minus on the game. Minus 18. Everyone else was positive. That is really, really hard to do. He is going to be out of the rotation when we get Zion and Redick and even Jalil Okafor was out of this game, Ken Williams, Holiday. When those guys are back, we're not going to be having to see any of Nicole O'Malley, thankfully, because he was not very good in this game at all. Let's move it on. Next game, the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks get the win 128-123. The Celtics were without Jaylen Brown, but they welcomed back Jason Tatum. Kemba Walker's been pretty quiet lately, but he had 40 points. Scoreless in the first quarter as well. 11 rebounds, 61% shooting. Great from him. Also a big one from Marcus Smart. 24-4, 5 triples, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and it didn't come on like 80% shooting. Still only shot 40%. He should be on a roster in all 12-team leagues. Enes Kanter only 16 minutes. He's a pretty clear drop to me in all 12s. He had that nice run. It's over. Vanilla Tice, 12 and 10 with 2 blocks. He's a solid 14-team league guy, but recently there's been some interesting numbers there for 12s. Probably more of a stream guy. Tatum had 17 and 7 on some bad shooting. Well, it wasn't as bad as Gordon Hayward, who had 7 points in 32 minutes on 1 of 10 shooting. He remains a strong buy low candidate to me. On to the Bucks. Middleton was big, 23, 6 and 4 with 2 steals, 62% shooting. Yanni played 35 minutes, 32, 17 and 7 with 2 blocks. This is what we talked about yesterday in the DFS preview, that the Celtics would push them to play more minutes. Antetokounmpo absolutely just ripped your free throw percentage, a new asshole. He was 10 of 20 from the line. That is, Ingram shot 20 free throws. Yanni shot 20 free throws. The impact there is so big. It's such a big difference between it. He is killing that category. But of course, you're punting it, so it doesn't matter. Brook Lopez, 16 points, 4 blocks and 3 triples. He'd been pretty quiet lately, but how about the big ragu? Dante DiVincenzo played 28 minutes. He had 19 points, 4 triples, 2 steals. He got minutes over Eric Bledsoe, who only played 20 minutes in this one. DiVincenzo has been a real surprise packer. I just want them to play him 32 minutes and take a lot of Wes Matthews minutes. That doesn't look like it's happening, but even with what he's doing at the moment, it doesn't really matter. Over the last 2 months, in under 25 minutes a game, he's the 94th ranked player. In 24 minutes a game over the last 2 weeks, he's the 63rd ranked player. Yes, in large part it's because of his steals, but he's hitting threes, he's scoring. There is room for him to get assists. I think he's going to be a top 70 type of dynasty guy within 2 years. Really, really impressed with what DiVincenzo's doing. Georgie Hill played well as well, 13 points in 25 minutes, while Wes Matthews was putrid, 0 points in 29 minutes. And as for Bledsoe, he was 9, 2, and 4 in those 20 minutes. Not a drop, but obviously a little bit concerning. He always struggles against Boston. We've seen that time and time again for Bledsoe. All right, next game up we look at is a smackdown by the Clippers over the Magic. 122-95, the final score. Evan Fournier did return for the Magic, but we got that news on DJ Augustin, who's going to be reevaluated in 3 to 4 weeks with bone bruise irritation. It doesn't sound great for DJ. Out until the All-Star break. I would imagine maybe another week or so after that would be my guess. Vucevic played 30 minutes, had 22 and 9 with 3 triples. Aaron Gordon had 20 points when Terrence Ross, he's taking on so many of those shots on the second unit. 16 points in 29 minutes with 4 triples. Now, he didn't shoot well, but the pure volume that Ross is going to get in terms of shots makes him a guy that is an option for 12-team leagues. Markelle Fultz, similarly, did not shoot well. 29% for 11 points, 30 minutes in the blowout, but had a 1-1, 11, 4, and 5. He should not be on any waiver wires anywhere, while Fournier had 15 points in 30 minutes. They started Kem Birch over Awundu, but it was Awundu who got the minutes. 28 minutes for Wes, 8 points, 2 threes, a steal and a block, while Birch went scoreless in 19. Wes is like a 16-team sort of league guy at the moment, especially with this Augustin situation. Gary Clark played 17 minutes as well. They desperately need Michael Carter-Williams to come back for somebody else who can just handle the ball a little bit and take some of that pressure off in that second unit. For the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, 32 points in 30 minutes, 5 assists, a steal and a block. His field goal percentage struggled at the beginning of the season, but it's absolutely rolling at the moment. Patty Beverly only the 21 minutes, 10 points and 7 assists, while 22 minutes for Zubats and 23 minutes for Montrezl Harrell is very interesting. Zubats was way ahead of Harrell in minutes for quite a long time in this game. 8 and 8 with a block. And this is something I talked about not long ago, is that you get this sort of weird feeling from the Clippers. And I think Jovan Buha wrote something over on The Athletic about Clippers looking at trade packages and how to working out this rotation in terms of Zubats is playing well and Harrell's such a defensive liability that the minutes split might happen. It's hard to judge completely because the last 2 games have been significant blowouts, but Zubats' minutes have been way up and Harrell's have been way down. If Zubats plays 24 a night, he can be a 12-team league guy. So if you're looking for field goals and rebounds and blocks, Zubats is going to have some value. Now, Harrell's not a drop, but it is absolutely worth looking at. In the Sell High podcast yesterday, I talked about Lou Williams, talking about his field goal percentage in particular, how it wasn't going to stick. He shot 29% and had 11 points in 24 minutes. He's not a drop, but the numbers he was putting up where he was like top 25 were never going to be able to stick, and it's probably going to get worse when Paul George is back, while Landry Shamet had 3 triples in his 13 points in 32 minutes. He's a 3-point streamer, but there are better 3-point streamers around than Shamet for most standard leagues. Mo Harkless also had to leave this game early with back soreness, so JaMychal Green played 23. He got a double-double with a triple-1. Good numbers from Green, but still just more of that 16-team league guy. Maybe he can sneak into 14-team league discussions. And then on to the last game of the night, the Golden State Warriors narrowly lose to the Denver Nuggets in overtime. They were up big, the Warriors. The Nuggets came back missing 3 starters. I think both teams would end up being happy with that result. The Nuggets getting the win and the Warriors putting up a fight and then losing. For Denver, there was no Jamal Murray, no Gary Harris.
Nice, Gary!
No Paul Millsap, so we had big games from some unlikely sources. Malik Beasley, who's been in and out of the rotation. The minutes are so unpredictable. 39 minutes, 27 points, 5 triples and 3 steals. Now, normally, he's not a peripheral stats sort of a guy. He scores and he does it efficiently, but he lacks in those other areas. I think he's a prime candidate to be traded for this upcoming season. And I do see, look, it depends on where he goes, but he would need 30 minutes a night to be a fantasy guy. Will Barton, 31, 5 and 7, 7 triples, handled some backup playmaking roles with Murray out as well. Strong game from him. It was Monty Morris who started, but only 26 minutes, 11, 3 and 3. If I added him, I'd be inclined to hold just to see where this goes, while PJ Dozier, who played so well yesterday, only 7 minutes. Jeremy Grant did nothing. Torrey Craig did nothing in starts. Got to talk about Big Chungus. Nikola Jokic, 23, 12 and 8 in 44 minutes with 2 blocks. Just great from him. But let's also talk Michael Porter Jr., one of his best games as a pro. 18 and 10, 3 triples, but probably most impressively, 5 assists and 2 steals. The minutes are obviously inflated by the absence of Millsap, Murray, and Harris. He's not going to be able to play 29 minutes a night as we move forward, unless multiple trades happen. But for the short term, while these 3 guys are out, he's worth at least adding and seeing where it goes. But we've seen it multiple times. He has a good game, and then he goes back and does nothing, and the minutes drop off. And we have to be aware of that. And I'd watch who I'd drop to add him, but he's absolutely worth having a look at. For the Warriors, Damian Lee, 21 points in 37 minutes. He's in after his contract's been signed. He shouldn't be on any waiver wire. 6 assists and a steal and a block as well. D'Angelo Russell, 19, 3 and 9 with 3 steals. I'm not buying into the trade talk with him at all. It's not really something that I think is going to happen. The little dog Glenn Robinson had 17 and 6 with 3 triples, while Alec Burks was struggling, but then 25 points, mainly through overtime, 4 triples there. Strong enough value. I think in a 10-team league, you can consider him a droppable guy. They changed the starting center. Omari Spellman was out. Willie Cauley-Stein was back in. There was some word from Anthony Slater that it was just a matchup thing against Jokic, but let's see where that goes. Cauley-Stein had 10 and 6 in 33 minutes. That's not really all that inspiring. While Spellman played 17 minutes and Marquise Chris played 11. We talked about Chris coming in on the two-way deal, how it would have somewhat of an impact on Spellman. I'd probably give Spellman one more game and see what happens here with this rotation. But Chris back into the mix is definitely a problem. Eric Pascal, 16 points in 20 minutes, including a key shot down the end of regulation to get this game to overtime. But again, that's not enough minutes for him to be an impactful player. While Draymond had 6, 8, and 8 with a steal and a block. And I would not be leaving Draymond Green on any waiver wires. Let's move across now and have a look at some injury news. Looks like Jamal Murray's going to be out multiple games. My initial estimation is 3 weeks here for Murray, but that's just a guess. I've got no idea more than multiple games. As was said just before, you've got Michael Porter, Monty Morris, those guys stepping up in his absence. Kevon Looney looks like he's a fair distance away from returning as well. He's just started doing one-on-one work. There's no set timetable for his return. I'd expect multiple weeks there as well. While DJ Augustin, as I detailed earlier, 3 to 4 weeks before reevaluation on his knee. RJ Barrett sprained his ankle today. He's going to be reevaluated on Friday. He did stay in the game for a bit, so that was positive. But then once he went to the locker room, he was ruled out immediately. Let's wait and see on that one. But he was providing numbers, assuming you were punting percentages. And then Mo Harkless left today's game with back soreness. He is only a deeper league option. Let's go on and talk some DFS now. We're going to be looking at FanDuel pricing for Friday's action. All right, first game we look at, the Chicago Bulls traveling to take on the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are 7.5-point favourites, and the total is 216. Of course, Chicago is going to be without Wendell Carter Jr. and Daniel Gafford, so I would assume that Luke Cornett gets the start. That's more minutes for Thad Young as well. Maybe you get a sprinkling of Chris Felicio in there, and Chandler Hutchison is questionable as well, so maybe that means we can finally get some more Big Shaq.
Big Shaq.
Big Shaq Harrison could get an opportunity. Yeah, probably not, though. It's more going to be guys like Archer Jacquino who step up into that role. Maybe Denzel the Hammer Valentine comes in. Of course, Chicago is listing Lauri Markkanen and Thomas Satoransky, Archer Jacquino, and Luke Cornett all as probable, as they do just list whatever guys, as many as they can every single game with that probable tag. At point guard, Satoransky's at $4,800. That's a really, really good price for Thomas. He's averaging 25 over the last 3. He dropped 31 last game. It is a tough matchup, but that's a really good price for Satoransky. As for Benny Simmons, $9,200, no Embiid. He's like a 45-point guy most nights. Really, really like that despite the negative matchup. And Chris Dunn at 48, I don't really feel too excited about him. Looks like he's a little bit off at the moment. Kobe White is always just a weird GPP flyer, but that's about it. At shooting guard, Joshie Richardson at 6,000. I like him around that 30 mark, a pretty strong cash guy. Maybe limited upside for tournaments, though. Zach LaVine at 85 has been like a 45-point guy almost every night, and that's really good value. The matchup is not a great one, but he has done well against Philadelphia in the past, so there is some value there in LaVine for sure. Furkan Korkmaz there isn't. If we're going to go young wings, the painter Matisse Thybulle at small forward, 4,100. I imagine he starts again. He had 28 points last game, almost exclusively on the back of his defensive stats. 4,100. If you get 25, that's enough there. I like him as a GPP guy. I love Toby Harris at 6,900 as well.
Giggity.
He dropped 53 in the last game, and no Embiid gives more usage towards him as well. James Ennis and Hutchison, no thanks. At power forward, Cornett's at 42. He had 27 points in 35 minutes, replacing Gafford last game, and he wasn't even that good. So I think at 4,200, he looks like a really strong cash option. Now it is a pretty shit matchup against Philadelphia, but even if he struggles, he should struggle his way to 23 or 24. Lowry's at 5,000. That's a really cheap price for Lauri Markkanen, and fair enough because he's been really bad. At some point, he's got to turn it around, and he will blow through that. So you might want to lean more towards tournaments, but I love the price. While Horford at 73, it's a big jump for Horf, but he's been playing very well without Embiid. The matchup is super positive for him here, so I like him in quite significant chunks. 4,600 for Thad Young. We just don't know what Boylan's going to do. Will he play him 30 minutes? Will he keep him in his 22-minute role? Last game, he had 33 points in 21 minutes, which is obviously great value, but there is an element of risk there with him. Mike Scott, no thanks. And no centers at all worth talking about in this matchup because power forwards are starting at center in Horford and Cornett, or FanDuel listed power forwards are starting at those positions. Next up, we look at the Wizards and the Raptors. The Raptors are favored by 10 points. The total is 229. Fred VanVleet might be returning for Toronto, giving them a fully healthy roster outside of Devon Hernandez, who is still out with an ankle injury. So that would be very interesting to see. We don't know the situation with Beal and his minutes limits, which have been at 27 each of the 2 games since he returned. We know Rui Hachimura and his testicles are still on the sideline, but Tom Bryant is back. Davis Bertans is back. We don't know the status of Bryant in terms of minutes. He hasn't played over 20 in either of the last 2 games, despite starting that last game at power forward next to Jan Mahinmi, which is not really making much sense. At point guard, Lowry's at 8,400. I think that's too expensive for Lowry. Now, the matchup's good, but Fred coming back, Lowry's shooting inefficiencies are a concern. He needs like a 45-pointer there, and I just don't have the trust in him getting that. I don't trust Isaiah Thomas at 3,800, nor do I trust Ish Smith at 47. If I'm going to take a flyer on them, it's going to be Thomas, because 3,800, you don't need much to go right to beat that number, but he has not been playing very well at all. Onto your shooting guards, Geordie McRae's at 58. Even with Beal back, he's still putting up pretty good numbers. 33 average over the last 5 in 29 minutes a game only. The minutes there come down a bit. 58 is high. I don't completely dislike it though. Beal at 77, really hard to trust with how they're using him in the minutes. While Stormer Norman Powell at 5,000, again, his role could be really clouded with Van Vliet likely to return. As for Freddie, he's at 7,500. Wouldn't feel comfortable about using him in return from a hammy, but we saw Marc Gasol play 32 minutes in a hamstring return. So Van Vliet at 75 at least has some tournament value there. The Big Mitten and Terrence Davis. Davis played well last game. Payton's been starting. I don't like either of them here, though. Pascal Siakam's at 7,800. He did start last game at small forward. I don't know whether that will be the case again, but I love that salary for Siakam, he's played 30 minutes in each of the 2 return games. That should bump back up here, while Troy Brown at 5,000 is no thank you. The Jedi, OG Anunoby.
Hello there.
He's at 4,800. He dropped a massive 43 bomb last game. I have very little trust in him being able to have that much usage, that many minutes, that many steals, and that good a field goal percentage. So if there's 4 big question marks, then that's a pretty strong no from me. Maybe in a tournament you look into it, but I don't really think so. Davis Bertans at 49, good cash floor, limited upside, I believe. That's okay, though, for cash. While Ibaka started at power forward next to Gasol and wasn't great. 23 points in 29 minutes, which at 6,700 doesn't get it done. I would not be looking for him to turn that around. Tom Bryant's at 4,000. Hey, you want to go for a tournament bid in case he sees his minutes rise? He should beat that number if that's the case, but we just don't know that at this point. While Gasol at 5,200, one of his better games, 32 in 32. He had that's 32 FanDuel points in 32 actual minutes. I don't really trust that level of production from him. While Mahinmi getting a lot of minutes for the Wizards, again, I don't think that he is an excellent DFS guy at all. Next game, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Indiana Pacers. These 2 teams just played each other. The Timberwolves in between have executed a deal. There's no Jeff Teague.
My name is Jeff.
They do get Alan Crabb in. He's not likely to be ready to play in this game as they process the trade. At point guard, Shabazz Napier's at 5,000. His salary's gone up $900. He's going to have to play a ton of minutes. They've ruled Jordan McLaughlin out at this point in the G League. Maybe they recall him, but at this point he's listed as out. So Napier is going to get a ton of minutes, 30 plus, and he should be able to beat that number. So I like him at 5,000 there. Brogdon's at 7,000. He had 35 last game. The matchup's a pretty good one for Broggo. I like him as well in this one, while Timothy John McConnell, no thank you. Wiggins at 64. He's going to have to handle the ball more with Teague out. I think that's a really good GPP guy. Jeremy Lamb, not interested in him. There's too much fluctuation in his production. At small forward, Jarrett Culver's at 51. Love that one. Culver's already been doing 28s, 29s a night. Now he gets an additional role in terms of ball handling while Teague isn't there, and Crab's maybe not ready to go. So I really do like Culver quite a bit here in this one. Tony Warren's at 55, good floor value, limited upside play, but I like him as a floor guy. Justin Holiday, no thanks. Okogie could be some extra minutes, but he's not really a good DFS play. At power forward, Sabonis is at 9,000. That is a lot. Now he put up 57 last game, so he smashed that number. The matchup is super positive for Domas here. I think he's not a bad option. We know his floor is pretty safe, and that's an encouraging thing. Bob Covington at 62. I'd probably be just fading off that with a little bit of the uncertainty about, of course, the big man in the middle, Karl Anthony Towns, whether he returns, which we just don't know at this point whether Towns is going to play. For your power forwards, for your centres, Towns 10-5. Look, that would be interesting if we knew he's going to play. I would have some hesitance in putting him out there, considering we don't know if he's back from his illness/knee injury. While Miles Turner at 63, no way in the world would I want to use Miles Turner at that salary. Gorgie Jeng also played well last time with Towns out. He did go back up to 29 minutes and had 34 points, but that's not really reliable with how Saunders has been running that centre rotation. The Cleveland Cavaliers go to take on the surging Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 8-point favourites here, and the total is 229. Jay Crowder is questionable for Memphis, while Cleveland should be welcoming back Kevin Love after he rested last game.
I'm not tired.
The Padawan Colin Sexton, 5,900. You know that I love that value. Really strong floor value. Probably a limited upside, but really good floor value. While Darius Garland at 5,300. Also been a guy that's just dropping 30s every night, like his value. I think he's got higher upside than Sexton, but both of them are good plays. Ja Morant at $8,000. He is rolling. Now, a lot of that's coming on like 60% shooting, so there is an element of risk at that elevated salary, and I probably wouldn't use him here. D'Anthony Melton's at 5,000. I love what Melto's doing. The wave pool's dropping 29 a game over the last 3 in only 21 minutes. The matchup's super strong for guards going up against the Cavs. There is a risk that that Jenkins comes out and just goes, well, you're only playing 18 tonight. And that's the real risk with the wave pool. He's super tempting. I just think we can find better options. One of those options is not Dante Exum, and it's not Tyus Jones. At shooting guard, Dylan Brooks at 5,800. Really, really strong numbers from him last time out. Been super consistent apart from a weird 9-point fart right in the middle of the last 5 games. At 5,800, though, there is an element of risk in using him, I believe. At small forward, Crowder's at 49. He is the most inconsistent man in the world. I would not want to get involved with him. Chetty Osman at 48. Been playing okay. Solid numbers, but not really translating that well to DFS. Solomon Hill, nah. At power forward, Brandon Clark's at 4,800. With how things are running with this rotation, the upside's pretty low and there's a bit of risk involved. While Kevin Love at 7,000. I know Love, when he's been playing, he's been giving us 35 a night pretty comfortably. I think he can exceed that. He can get to 40 here. I do like him as an option in this matchup. Larry Nance, I don't. At center, Tristan Tomo Thompson, 6,100. He had 9 points against the Clippers. Prior to that, he'd been really good. In these last 5 games, he's had a 66-pointer and a 9-pointer. Jay Crowder is insanely jealous of that level of spread of performances. I don't feel good about using Tristan. I do feel good about Jonas Valanciunas, spending $500 more for Jonas, who's way more consistent and a better player. I like that a lot. And the matchup is so good going up against the Cavs front court as well. Going up against the Cavs at any position is good. So I do like Jonas there. I didn't mention Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., 7,100. I think he's a tournament sort of guy. I don't love that salary for him for cash matchups. Ante Zizic is also out for the Cavs, so he might get some Muppet John Henson minutes there back at backup center. Let's go next game. The Miami Heat, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Steven Adams isn't on the injury report, so that's good news, but Nerlens Noel is questionable, while Tyler Hero is questionable for Miami. If Hero is out, it gives a boost to guys like James Johnson, Kendrick Nunn, Kelly Olynyk even got some run last time. Dunk Robinson, the Spur, extra minutes for him. If Noel is out, Muscala will take that role, but the fact that Adams isn't likely to miss means that Muscala is not going to be much of an option. The Iron Shoulder, Goran Dragic is at 4,600. I don't really feel super good about him there. While Chris Paul's at 72, I do like that, although the matchup is not ideal. Kendrick Nunn's at 48. His matchup is probably less ideal, but the fact that he is at sub 5,000 with a chance that Hero misses, and Nunn has put up some really strong games 2 in a row, I think that he is absolutely worth looking at here. For your shooting guard, Schroeder's at 54. Love that one. Dunk Robinson's at 39. I don't feel super strongly about that one. While Gilgeous-Alexander at 73. Well, that's great because he's been dropping 41 a night. He had a 60-pointer. His lowest score in his last 5 has been 31. So you feel good about his floor. You feel good about his upside. I really like that 7,300 price tag for Gilgeous-Alexander. In fact, having him at 73 and Jim Butler at 87, that doesn't feel right because Butler has not been performing quite at the level. In fact, over the last 5 games, Gilgeous-Alexander has been outscoring him, and you've got a $1,400 price difference between the two. As for Hero at 44, no. Small forwards, the Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands up, my cock!
Shout out to anybody who recognizes that sound drop and anyone who's a Super Smash Bros. Fan. I'm not, but I just hear about it 24/7 from my son and got a message at 2 a.m. from him as he was staying up watching the Sakurai announcement of the new DLC character and sending me pictures of it. And I was like, I don't even know who this bloke is. But anyway, if you're into Smash Ultimate, hey, let me know what you thought of the new character that I don't even remember his name that Sakurai announced yesterday. Shout out to everyone who has no idea what I'm talking about because I barely know what I'm talking about. Anyway. Where even was I? Oh yeah, Gallinari, 6,200. Really good floor value there for the Rooster. While Derek Jones Jr. at 45. I just think there are much better DFS guys that we can go after. At power forward, Noel's at 4,000. Not interested in him at all. While Bam Bam Adebayo at 83. Numbers for him have pushed back up a little bit. 40 average over the last 5. It's not quite where we need it to be. And I just think there are better options out there. At centre, Steve Adams is at 65. He hasn't. That's too high, I think, for Adams. We can find better centre plays. Myers Leonard is not one of those better centre plays. Next game, the Atlanta Hawks, the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs are 8.5-point favourites at home, and the total here is 230.5 points. Not likely to have Teague playing in this one. DeJounte Murray is at 5,100. He has not been performing all that well. The matchup is super good, and that is why you'd look at him as a GPP guy, but nothing else. Derek White at 42. I don't really see it for maximum Derek here, while Trae Young at 10-4. He's unbelievable. He's a 50-point guy every night. No reason to think that he isn't going to be that 50-point guy again, so I like him here. At shooting guard, DeRozan's at 82. Apparently the greatest shooter of all time, DeMar DeRozan, 60% shooter, averaging 47 over the last 5. But that salary is coming up where it's a little bit worrying, but the fact that it's against Atlanta gives me an element of going, yeah, I feel pretty safe using DeMar here. Britton Forbes, DeAndre Bembry, although Bembry should get some more minutes with Crabbe gone, and the Drip Lonnie Walker are your other shooting guard options, and I don't really think they're interesting. Rudy Gay's at small forward, that's cool. As is DeAndre Hunter, probably even less cool, averaging 17 points over the last 5. He has been poor. He is only a tournament guy, while Cam Reddish isn't even that. At power forward, Aldridge at 68, really dropping off with his form at the moment. Aldridge is averaging just 26 FanDuel points over the last 3 games. Now, that is not even close to that 68 price tag, but a few weeks back, he was like pushing 8,500. So there is real value here. I love him as a tournament guy. The Baptist John Collins at 81. That's a $1,300 difference between him and Aldridge. I would take Aldridge there over Collins, even though I like what Collins is doing. I just feel that salary difference is so stark that we got to go in that direction. At centre, Jakob Poeltl, no thank you. Damian Jones, or Alex Len's out, so maybe we get more minutes from Jones, but that is not really all that of appealing of a DFS play. Next game up, which is, I believe, the last game of the night, the Portland Trailblazers and the Dallas Mavericks. Kristaps Porzingis. He was ready to go last game and then got some soreness back in the warm-ups. He's officially listed as questionable. If he is out, value goes to Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, Dorian Finney-Smith, and to Luka Doncic and Tim Hardaway as well, as their usage gets split. $11,000 for Donk. He is... at least he got the free throws back on track last game. 63-pointer. I like him quite a bit in a matchup that really suits him. While Lillard's at 88, limited upside, but massively strong floor. I like Dame quite a bit there. Simons and Curry, no thanks. Delon Wright at shooting guard, no. CJ McCollum's at 76. I think that price is probably pushing a little bit too high. He's on a hot streak, and whenever he gets on a hot streak, that means to me fade McCollum, which is what I'm doing here. At small forward, Finney-Smith's at 45. He's not a great DFS play, while Mallow at 63. I'd love him at a 58. A really good value for Mallow at 58. At 63, I just feel that you're really worrying about how the shooting goes. If he has an off night, he's getting nowhere near that. It's not the greatest option to me there. While Timmy Hardaway at 49, I feel much more comfortable with Hardaway at 49 than I do with Mallow at 63. Bazemore also played well last game, but that 4,900 that you have to spend on Kent, I'd much rather spend it on Tim, amazingly. At power forward, Porzingis is at 74. Not at this point. Kleber's at 47. Also not interested in him at this stage. And then onto the centres, you've got Hassan Whiteside. The world. His numbers are down at the moment, averaging just 42 over the last 5. I probably would leave him alone here at that sort of elevated salary. I'm very interested in Dwight Powell at 5,700. Low upside, but really strong floor numbers, especially if KP happens to be out. Let's have a look now over on DraftKings at some options over there. Aldridge and Siakam and Garland, Sexton, Whiteside, Jackson, Doncic. That's Jaren Jackson, DeMar DeRozan, Chris Paul, John Collins, Sabonis and Trae, Benny Simmons, Lillard and Mallow. And of course, you can see all of the projections over on basketballmonster.com. That'll do me for another week, guys. Subscribe. You'll never miss an episode. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Leave all your Smash Ultimate comments down below. Give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.
Change
Caleb Swanigan.